Hey, digital world, welcome back once again to another Spliced Later. I hope you all are keeping well, and thank you once again for joining me for another rip-roaring talk-back radio, whatever this is. It's been a bit since I last saw you, since I did my big Mummy episode, where we talked all things Mummy-related, and I do mean the Brendan Fraser movies, not about my own mother. That would be strange. I just took some time to step away, just to rest, regroup. It's a lot to come up with new content every single week, especially when you don't have any movies to review at that current point in time or anything new that you really want to talk about. So step back for a bit, plan some stuff out before we get back into it with more movie reviews, more talking about Marvel, more ranking TV shows, more talking about classic movies. We've got some good stuff coming, so I hope you will tune into those episodes because I think they'll be good when I get around to actually doing them. For now, we're going to launch back into things in kind of an awkward spot. We are talking about something which I think people may not really care about at this point. I'm in an awkward spot here in Australia. The movie that I'm reviewing for you here today has already been out in America for, I'd say, about a month. As of this recording, I think it's just about coming in on its 1 month anniversary. Technically, it's not even out here in Australia yet. It is out this week. I went to a special advanced screening of it on the weekend. Why? Because I like to see these things as soon as possible because I don't like to be spoiled on things. It has been not as hard as I thought it was going to be, avoiding spoilers for Haunted Mansion. By the way, I'm reviewing Haunted Mansion, in case the subtlety there is gone. But not really, because no one's really talking about it. So I don't think it's a huge hit. I'm not sure. Now, once this is done, I can properly go and see what other people think. I don't like to see what other people think, as it might influence my recording before I do it. So either you're listening to this and you've already seen it ages ago and you're just interested to see if people agree or disagree with your opinion, or you haven't seen it yet, but for some reason right at the finish line, you've decided to spoil it for yourself. Or you're a regular listener here on the show. In either case, I welcome any ears to this. Okay, let's get right into it. As I said, we're reviewing Haunted Mansion, a 2023 movie from Disney based around the very famous, very popular attraction at Disneyland, Haunted Mansion. There has already been a Haunted Mansion movie that came out in 2003 starring Eddie Murphy, based around the same thing. I guess 2003 was around that time they were really going, Pirates of the Caribbean worked, let's see what else we can do. And I guess they gave Haunted Mansion a try and then did nothing else until Jungle Cruise during the pandemic. Got an all-star cast: Lakeith Stanfield, Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, Rosario Dawson, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jared Leto. Apparently, I had no idea Jared Leto was in this movie until I saw his name in the credits at the start. That's how disconnected I was from the actual publicity of this thing. It also doesn't help that this, by my calculations, is the first movie that was really hit in terms of the strike coming into effect and actors not being able to promote their products. A lot of movies at the moment are getting by from pre-recorded stuff. You will notice if you go on YouTube, for instance, for example, I just saw Grant Gustin from The Flash answering questions from BuzzFeed to promote this new movie that's coming out starring him and Lucy Hale, and has a little subtitle on the bottom that says, "This interview was recorded in 2022. Because as part of the strike, which I'm firmly supportive of, maybe I'll do a whole episode on that, but I don't think I really need to. There's plenty of information out there. You all know what's going on. But a little bit of information for you is that as part of the terms and conditions of the strike, not only can actors and writers and whoever is striking at this point not work on new content, they cannot assist in the promotion of content that has been made. They cannot conduct interviews. They cannot go on late night shows. They cannot attend red carpet events, meaning strike hit, and I believe a week later, Haunted Mansion premiered. So Haunted Mansion went, that's okay. We'll just get people from the theme park dressed up as iconic Disney characters to walk the red carpet instead of Owen Wilson and Lakeith Stanfield and all of that. It was as awkward as it sounds. It really highlights just how long this strike is probably going to go because of that disconnect from reality that these big Hollywood corporations are at the moment. But again, that's a whole other thing. Okay. I'm stalling. Here's the thing. Very rarely on this show do I say I hate a movie. It's part of the very fiber of why I made this podcast, because most of the time when you go on YouTube or you go on Spotify or wherever and you look up these movies, the negativity always outweighs the positive. There is positive out there, do not get me wrong, but the negative voices are always the loudest. And when the negativity comes out, it's always in an aggressive way. They're like personal attacks. They're really nasty sort of things that bash people who like the thing that they also don't like. You've got to walk that fine line. You can be negative without being a prick. And most of the time, people were just pricks. So when I started this back in 2019, my goal was to always find the positive, to always highlight the good things out of everything I see. Even movies that I don't particularly care for, I would always say, it might not be for me, but I can see how this would appeal to one person or another. I think the only movie that comes to mind on this show that I actively hated, and it was made abundantly clear when I reviewed it, was Ghostbusters Afterlife back in 2021, because I just could not find any way to get past it. Now, 2023 has had some good movies and has also had some really forgettable stuff. So I don't know if I can properly recollect if anything I reviewed this year has made me mad or angry, but not in the same way as Ghostbusters Afterlife. I didn't care for Morbius. I didn't care for Monster Hunter, but it didn't make me angry or annoyed with it. It was just movies that weren't necessarily for me. I don't know who Morbius was for, but I'm sure somebody out there got a kick out of it. A lot of people got a kick out of Matt Smith dancing. And I say all that because with this movie, with Haunted Mansion, I can honestly say that I hate it. And I'm really sorry about that. I apologize to everybody who's like, I like that Haunted Mansion. I did see there was quite a few positive reviews when it first came out. I don't know how it's dwelled with people over the month. For me personally, it's not so much that the movie is poorly made or badly acted. I think everybody involved does as good a job as they are allowed. This movie just unfortunately kind of is the perfect example of what Hollywood has become at the moment and the priority of making movies now versus in the past. What do I mean by that? Well, the priority now is to create a product that will make money over telling an interesting story, actively engaging with people's wonder and imagination, using the talent available to you. No, it's how much money can we make out of this particular IP brand. We pulled it out of our box of IP brands. What are we making today? A Haunted Mansion movie? Cool, no problem. Ring up the products. Let's start the advertising. What's that script? This script could have been written by an AI, I reckon. I don't know. So yes, this is not going to be a positive review. I really, really do not like it. I can step back though and say that a lot of what I don't like out of it comes from somebody who sees a lot of movies and spots things I think that other regular going people might not see. I see so many movies that I know how to spot product placement. I know how to spot choppy editing, strange scenes, things that are put into plugs, certain things or another. I can see where the bones of a movie are. Not because I'm good at liking movies or anything. I am good at liking movies. Who isn't? Not that I am a movie expert by any means. It's just when you see enough of these things, you can see that. But someone who saw Haunted Mansion and then the last movie they saw was Avengers Endgame back in 2019 might not spot the same things that I do, and therefore don't hate it as much as I do and actually have a good time with it. I am speaking on behalf of me and the 12 other people that were in my advanced screening, a big bunch of which were kids who were clearly very excited. My movie theater billed this as Spooky Sunday Screening, which I gotta say, Limelight Cinemas, if you're listening to this, I don't know what you're doing at the moment. You keep advertising these advanced screenings and you say Spooky Sunday Screening, or for instance, the Poirot movie that's coming up, you build it as a murder mystery party screening. But you're not actually doing anything with that concept. It's just an advanced screening. So you have like this family with a bunch of kids. I think they all came dressed up as ghosts. They were very excited for a spooky screening, probably something like Barbie's or Girls' Night Out screening was before, with mimosas and Barbie boxes that you could get in and pretend to be Barbie. But it was like an offhand sort of No, it's just playing in the back corner there. It's our spooky screening. Off you go. It was spooky how much there was nothing about it. All right, enough stalling. Let's get to it. So, Haunted Mansion, released in 2023. It has absolutely nothing to do with the 2003 movie. It's not a sequel. It's not a remake of that. The only thing those two movies have in common is that it is set in the Haunted Mansion. The things in the Haunted Mansion attraction are in both movies. You know, Madame Leota's head in the crystal ball, Gracie Manor, the dancing ghosts in the dining hall, the room with the pictures where the room stretches and the pictures reveal ghastly effects, moving eyes in the portraits. Everything, if you've ever been on the attraction, it's in both movies. I can say I really like the Haunted Mansion attraction. I think it's a good family fun sort of thing. The most recent time I went, they had the Nightmare Before Christmas skin on it, which was even more fun for that. And the 2003 Eddie Murphy movie, just touching on that briefly, I enjoy it to this day. True, I was a kid when I watched it. When I've gone back and rewatched it since then, I can, of course, admit it's probably not the most competently made movie. But everybody's putting an effort in. It's got Eddie Murphy's usual comedy. There's some intriguing ways of taking the things on that attraction and adapting it into a story of sorts. So I do think it holds up. I think the Haunted Mansion is better than Haunted Mansion. At least the Haunted Mansion has a story and a reason to exist. But there's no connection otherwise. Basically what happens in this movie, it's set in present day. It's billed as an ensemble film, but basically it is just the story of Lakeith Stanfield's Ben, a former scientist guy who has suffered a tragedy in his life, so much so that he's reduced to just giving walking tours around the city of New Orleans. Until one day he is approached by a priest, Owen Wilson, who says, here's the deal. I've got this woman, her name's Rosario Dawson. No, it's not. That's the actor's name, but you get it. She's got a kid. They've just moved into a mansion a few hours outside of New Orleans. It's haunted. I believe you have created a camera which could take pictures of these ghosts. So for some money, why don't you come out there and do that? Lakeith Stanfield is like, I don't believe in ghosts, but you want to pay me? Sure, I'll come out and do it. And then, of course, once he's out there, things escalate, shenanigans ensue. He does realize, yes, this place is very haunted, and now I cannot leave this mansion until we figure out what's going on. So he has to team up with Owen Wilson, Rosario Dawson and her kid, along with a couple other people that are trapped in this mansion with them, namely a very, very old Danny DeVito as this professor guy, and a seance, typical New Orleans speak to the deceased type of person, played by Tiffany Haddish. They learn some stuff about Gracie Manor, what's going on, why there are ghosts there. They have a couple of chats with Jamie Lee Curtis's head in a jar, and then realize they got to stop Jared Leto's ghost specifically from claiming one last soul. He's been claiming souls over the years. Once he gets this last soul, I guess he can escape the mansion. It's not exactly clear. So this group of very different people have to come together, but more specifically, Lakeith Stanfield has to open up to these people, accept his role in the adventure, believe in ghosts, yada, 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 and become the hero that everybody desperately needs him to be. All right, now, normally I would start with what are the positives. There's little, but I will say Lakeith Stanfield absolutely carries this movie as his character Ben. Whether he knows he's in a corporate mess or not, he does put the effort to really make this character believable in terms of the tragedy that he has had in his past, the sorrow that he feels, the disinterest, and then the thrown into the situation de facto leader of the group that he's in. He really does carry this entire movie. You might look at the poster, see all those people on it, and think, oh yeah, it's a group movie. Everybody's going to have their role to play. Not really. No one has anything important to do. No one really stands out. Not to the actor's detriment, though. For what they're given, Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, Tiffany Haddish, Rosario Dawson, they do give it their absolute best. They are just not utilized. I don't know if that's by intent, because the priority clearly is to tell Lakeith Stanfield's story, but the story itself is not worth the 2-hour runtime that this movie's in. In fact, looking back on the movie, Rosario Dawson doesn't do a single thing. She's not given a moment to shine, to be heroic, to save her son, anything like that. She just runs around after everybody else, and that is unfair to everybody involved in that movie. The recreation of the Haunted Mansion stuff, I think, looks okay. It holds up in a world where CG is becoming more and more overworked and underpaid, so the cracks are starting to show. If you are a big fan of the attraction and you've seen it many times and you know all these things, you will be like, that's pretty cool. And the sound design for some of the ghosts is pretty good. When Jared Leto's talking, it sounds spooky. A couple of nice little jump scares that are proper for a family-style ghost adventure. The mansion itself is not utilized. We're really in the same spots over and over again, but the different types of ghosts and mannerisms all get to pop in and do their thing, and it's relatively okay. The biggest crime of this movie is its lack of purpose or direction. I have absolutely no idea who it's actually made for. Thinking back to The Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy, that is a family movie. It's a film that kids can definitely enjoy, that adults will enjoy. They'll get some certain jokes. There's a little bit of horror that might keep the kids on edge, but not in a way that'll traumatize them. And even a little bit that the adults might go, whew, yeah, all right. This movie is too long, over 2 hours, and I cannot tell you who it was made for. It feels like it should be a family movie, but a lot of the times, the scenes are just people sitting in rooms and talking to each other. The ghosts disappear for lengths on end, which is ironic if they're in a haunted mansion. It's set piece, talking. Set piece, talking. And as such, if you're an adult, you will get bored. And if you're a kid, more of a crime, you will definitely get bored. Those poor kids that came to see this movie, dressed up in their ghostly outfits, ready to have themselves a little spook, they were bored by 10 minutes. And they started chatting to each other and running up and down the aisle and all of that. And I could not be mad at them because, you know what? I get it. I'm bored too. The story itself is weak. There's not really much going on. Again, seeing the lack of utilization of characters. There are too many characters in here for the amount of people that do nothing. Danny DeVito has some funny lines. Owen Wilson has a couple of funny lines, but Owen Wilson's character completely changes during the movie for no other reason than I guess he decided he wanted to do something else in terms of his comedy style. Danny DeVito is just being Frank from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which at that point you may as well just watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Tiffany Haddish's comedy is great. She's manic. She's insane. She would be hilarious in the role that she is playing if she was allowed to do something, but she does nothing. The biggest crime of this movie, the thing that completely pulls me out of the movie and makes me hate it so much though, is the product placement in this movie. It is atrocious. It is too much. It is glaringly obvious, and it really makes you realize, oh, this movie wasn't made because anyone has a good idea or wants to actually make a good Haunted Mansion movie. They don't even want to make an okay Haunted Mansion movie. They just want to earn some money by selling stuff. Either it's promoting the Disney brand, which is assimilating the world like the fucking Blob, or outside sources, which I assume Disney will assimilate at some point anyway. If you are unclear of what product placement is, that's okay. I would hope so. Product placement is something that all movies utilize, whether you know it or not. Basically, especially independent style movies, people need money to make movies. They need endorsement. They need support. They need people to give them what they need to make a movie. Disney, not so much. Disney makes $1 billion every 10 seconds, but other movies, sure. So it can range from anything from a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant to Bud Light beer to sneakers to a particular place like the Griffith Observatory. All these different things can endorse a movie to get it made. And in return, that movie has to find a way to advertise those things. Fine, easy to do. The way that you have to do it is incorporate it into your movies without it being glaringly obvious. the more subtle, the better, because it's always been said, it's like subliminal messaging. If you watch something and the characters are drinking, I got to use an Australian example, Carlton Dry beer. So they're holding their bottles of Carlton Dry. The label is slightly facing you. And by the end of the movie, you might go, that was good. And you know what? I feel like heading to the bar and having a Carlton Dry. Same with if you see some people eating Cocoa Puffs for breakfast while they talk about the fact that their daughter's failing college. You might think afterwards, I could do with some Cocoa Puffs. The subtler the better. Movies have always had a pretty bad balancing effect for it, but some are pretty good, others not so much. For another example of a movie that is infamous for its product placement was Transformers 4, Transformers Age of Extinction, which was just advertisements galore. You might not think that so much because that in itself is almost drowned out by the robots just smashing into things and exploding. But for example, a Transformer smashes through a Victoria's Secret bus, and the Victoria's Secret logo is so emblazoned on the back in a most unnatural manner that you think, oh, product placement. Victoria's Secret must have put some money into this movie. Now imagine that times 1,000, and that's this movie. Once or twice you go, okay, they're advertising something, that's fine. By the time you get towards the end of the movie and Owen Wilson's pulling out a bag of Burger King tater tots and you literally laugh out loud because you're like, are you serious? That's when it's out of control. Every other line in this movie is advertising something, and not in a natural way. It's forced into the movie. Owen Wilson stops for Burger King for no reason. I guess he's hungry. When they're doing their seance, Tiffany Haddish keeps saying, write down what you want on this pen and paper that I bought from CVS. Just say pen and paper. She's waving around her seance dust and she's like, this is a good deal. I got these at Costco. Okay? There's a candle on the table and they make a point of saying, where did you get that candle? From IKEA or something? Yes, I forgot to cancel my Amazon subscription, so I keep getting candles. It's really bad. It's really, really, really bad. The absolute worst part of it all is a very important scene, I guess, so I'm told, where Lakeith Stanfield is pretty much telling the big tragedy that occurred in his life that caused him to be so sad and miserable. And please thank me for still being vague about this, because if there are a couple of you that want to see this movie, I will stay by my other rule, which is that I promise to not spoil major events in movies. But he's telling this story about a tragedy that happened involving someone very close to him. To sum it up, basically they died while they were out getting ice cream. Odd, but yeah, okay, you can make it work. The problem is that in this very dramatic, upsetting scene, Lakeith Stanfield has to say they'd gone out for ice cream, so they stopped at a Baskin Robbins. It's clunky as hell to say Baskin Robbins. You don't need to say Baskin Robbins. We get it from ice cream. The worst part is, after that, Danny DeVito cracks a joke about the great menu at Baskin Robbins and lists all the different things you can get there, to which everybody has a chuckle. That's atrocious. That's so bad. Now, I spotted this stuff not immediately. Some of the stuff I was like, okay, but it just kept happening to a point where I could not see it. I could not enjoy the movie. I could not care about anything that was going on anymore. Especially Owen Wilson pulling out that Burger King bag in the car was the last straw. Especially how awkwardly he had to pull it out of his bag so that the Burger King logo was there. And there was more stuff I didn't even catch. I found if you Google Haunted Mansion product placement, you'll get the full list, which I'm sure is being added to every day. That infuriates me, especially from something like Disney. One, you haven't even put any effort in to make a good movie. You're just relying on IP brand just for people to come and see your shit. But two, you still feel the need to try and make more money? More money off ridiculous product placement and plugging other things from your clearly tax write-off purposes piece of trash. It's infuriating. And if that doesn't show why the strike in America is so important and why people like Bob Iger and all the CEOs of all the others need to understand what the fuck is going on right now, that they've done a perfect picture by creating this haunted mansion piece of garbage that anyone can watch and be like, oh, okay, this is corporate greed. Haunted Mansion sucks. 2 out of 10. I only give it the 2 because I do like the people involved. I like the Haunted Mansion attraction, and I feel bad for the people that had to try and sell the dialogue and the situation that was going on in here. I didn't even mention that a kid plays Marvel superheroes Monopoly by himself because you got to plug that stupid thing, or that the action figures he's playing off with are all characters from very recent big budget Marvel movies. See, it just keeps coming to me. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend anyone see it. But I don't think it really matters because it's already been out for a bit in America, and I hear it was an absolute failure because another genius move by Disney, 2 genius moves, was 1, apparently to not release it on Halloween, which would have been the perfect time to release this thing, and 2, not realize that releasing this alongside the Barbenheimer meme advertising sensation that had been building for months. You really thought Haunted Mansion had a chance against that? I don't know. But for everybody listening to this who is in Australia, who has been waiting for it to come out and is excited to see it, at the end of the day, that's your choice. But you will probably end up like me, who was genuinely keen to see this movie. I loved the cast. I haven't seen Danny DeVito in a movie for ages. Soft spot in my heart for the Haunted Mansion attraction and the old Eddie Murphy movie. The trailer looked alright. I thought I'd at least have a fun time. And instead, I just felt miserable. And I had to pay for parking because for some reason my ticket was not validated at the cinema like they told me. So a terrible experience all around. I don't recommend it. But it's up to you. Go see it if you want. I don't care. I'm not your mother. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. Next week will be another movie review. I will also be reviewing a movie that has been out in America for a while. This is just going to be it for this show for a while. Here in Australia, we are finally getting the stuffs, all the stuff and things. Blue Beetle comes out in a couple weeks. I know that's been out for a bit. I am actually excited for these 2 movies though. So I hope, well look, they can't be as bad as Haunted Mansion. Fingers crossed. So I'm hoping for some more positive reviews. At the very least, the Ninja Turtle screening that I'm going to is a pizza party screening, and that actually does mean something. It's not just words. I will be getting to eat a pizza while I watch Ninja Turtles. And pizza and Ninja Turtles go together like Mando and Baby Yoda. So I should at least have a good time for that. So be sure to tune in next week for that. I'll be excited to bring it for you. And for the future, Spliced and Later, that's coming. There will be some other stuff besides reviews. We'll obviously go back and do some more MCU stuff. I want to rank the Star Trek shows. Maybe talk about the Goonies. There should be some good stuff. So be sure to come in back, please. I'm not always this miserable, I promise. Until next week, I love and appreciate you as always. Thank you for listening to me. It does mean a lot to me. Stay safe, stay kind to another one. You've been Spliced in Nader. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.